District 5. Okay. Hey, I'm sorry, let it be noted, we're 4 minutes past 6 o'clock. Oh, my gosh. Uh, I want to call the meeting to order, and we'll have roll call. It's on the agenda. Huh? Here they are.
You had one job. All right, sorry about that. Okay, Ms. Parker, Ms. Hopkins,
Here.
Mr. Pennings, Mr. Moore is present, Mr. Atkinson,
Yes.
Mr. Sims,
Here.
Mr. Beaver, Mr. Howell, Ms. Morency, Mr. Dudley.
And Ms. Kinser's here. That's not, my name's
Ms.
not on
Kinser.
that list, is it?
Yeah, and we do have a quorum.
I know most of you may know this, but Jim Pennings has moved to Etheridge, so he tendered his resignation from the board effective Friday, and the commission will be looking at appointing someone to fill his position very soon, I think, hopefully, so. All right, we need to adopt an agenda. Is there a motion? There's been a motion by Mr. Moore, a second by, Mr. Atkinson. Is there any discussion? Then you want to try this? We're learning to vote on this new software. We thought this might be a good opportunity. No? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. With no opposition, no, except we're ready to look at a new budget proposal. I think you all got one that you could look at, and then there's an amended one that came out a little bit later with some cuts in it. And so, who's going to speak to it? You, Mr. Laconin?
I've actually got some, I've got an Excel document set up to where we could review some raise, situations, I guess, a couple different types of scenarios. I have a ton in here already, after the cuts that we made this morning, so we could take a look at that. You can take a look at the budget and object code detail if you would like, function detail if you would like, and we can make amendments in this meeting if you wish. So, we did cut just above, we had the BEP growth in that around $1 million figure. We were able to save some money out of operations and instruction and cut this budget down. Currently, if we do not fund a raise whatsoever, our total expenditure budget factoring in attrition will be $103,981,000, which will force us to take $313,229 out of our fund balance. So we are pulling into our reserves to balance that particular budget, and going forward that would mean that any raise or bonus or whatever incentive increase for teachers or school positions this year would be coming out of fund balance as a one-time pay. I've got it. Doing 2 displays. Okay. This is my extended. And that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
There you go.
Okay, with, then, in the columns, Battle Creek 1%, we can do that with some monies, excess monies left over. Is that what I'm looking at down here?
Yeah, he's following it up. They're gonna toggle over. While he's doing that, can I ask a couple?
Yes, please.
Can we, just to recap where we're at, just so everybody's on the same page, what was we had submitted a number of the 106, 408, 438 to the county commission. They had refused to accept that number, and they had returned a number which was the same one they had returned last time. Am I not? So that was at 103, 524, 821, correct? Yes. Okay, so that's where they still would like us to be. Now, if Doug could, because I'm looking at two different pieces of paper here, actually, the electronic. If you could refresh me again where you're talking about where we're starting at this point, Doug?
So that is the Battle Creek BC positions column. And so I have total expenditures there. I've been doing some editing all day long. So, you know, numbers could have changed since the last document we have sent out. So I have a total budget of $103,981,000. That's with factoring $500,000 in for attrition. And then our revenue, we actually got our July BEP estimate in today. So I increased that revenue to $59,526,000. Previously, it was $59,383,000. So you can see our revenues look a little bit better than the 103, 524, 821 due to that BEP increase. And then our expenditures, we all had an executive meeting this morning and cut some out of the budget. So this budget, just opening Battle Creek schools, would require us to dip into our fund balance to the tune of $313,229. So any additional expenditures added on top of that would come from fund balance.
Even the discussion of any kind of percentage of raise would have to come from fund balance, I thought.
That is correct.
But we're opening Battle Creek, costing about $2.8 million. So we could say we're using fund balance for that and use funds for a raise, could we not?
I mean,
it's kind of semantics here.
I know.
That's a one-time expense that we won't have again.
No, because opening Battle Creek includes 21 positions that are going to need to stay there and run that school, you know. And the 7 support staff as well would need to stay and run that school. It's a recurring expense.
Well, explain to me how you said that we could sustain a 1% raise.
We can sustain a 1% raise because we would be able to take it out of fund balance this year, and we should have enough fund balance next year to be able to do it again if we had zero growth. I expect that we will have some growth in our BEP revenue and in our property tax revenue, but in order for us to give a larger percent of raise higher than 1%, or a larger incentive pay, I think we looked at 2.5%, and we would need to see our BEP grow exponentially compared to this year. It was originally, this year it's grown 1.3 million. Next year we would need to not only grow 1.3 million, but grow 2.3 million to fully fund that increase if we took that much out of our fund balance, so that we can fully fund a recurring expenditure with revenue rather than our reserves.
Do you feel comfortable with that? 1%?
I feel comfortable with a 1% raise.
All right. Which would make the total?
I would state that I feel much more comfortable with a bonus just because it is not a recurring expenditure. But I also know that there's mixed feelings about a bonus. You know, it is a one-time payout, and there is no guarantee for next year. But I do think that this gives us time to gain our ground, get in more BEP funding and more revenues to be able to do something more concrete next year. But that's just my opinion as far as looking at the revenues, looking at the expenditures, estimating. You know, there's a lot of things that aren't guaranteed for us for next year. You know, we had a meeting with Mary Ann Dursky this morning and Elizabeth and Scott Sapicki, and we talked about BEP funding, and it wasn't as exciting as we had hoped. We were hoping for a lot more BEP funds when talking about that, and we are searching alternate routes that State Rep Sapicki is going to pursue to try to get us some funds quicker. So that was a good result of the meeting. And then in addition to that, we can anticipate our property tax and our BEP to grow as students come into this area, but we don't know exactly how much. You know, if anybody in here can predict the future, I want their phone number, 'cause I would put those revenue figures in here, but I can't.
But you would feel comfortable with the 1%? I mean, you would be able to say...
We can sustain a 1%, and it would just, next year, when we get towards budget time, we'd be starting with those higher salaries. We'd also factor in, step, and we might be at a point in which we might not be able to do very much next year if we do a full-blown, raise, because we're increasing all of the salaries permanently. And so if you give a percentage off of a higher salary, then that is going to cost you more. That's just the numbers of it.
Okay, so what
Yeah.
is that number with including a 1%?
So I do have one question. I was sent two different proposals. One had all of the employees with the exception of the superintendent, and another proposal had support staff and it had teachers. It left out coordinators, principals, and directors, and basically supervisory staff. That would be a savings of $65,000. Hold on, I've got it now. I've actually got it on a different sheet.
That's okay, and full disclosure, I've all day...
673.
I've all day been with pen in hand and studying this, and that was a suggestion I had, would be, leadership roles not receive a 1% or whatever. So, you're saying it's only a savings of $65,000 and probably...
Yeah.
Probably would be a morale, something as well. So, and actually that came from, assistant principal and a principal saying, take care of the teachers, you know, take care of the teachers first, you know, if there's any choice. And so that's why I started to look into that. You know, there's two things going on here. The commission is meeting tomorrow night in budget. There are some commissioners that are not completely sold on the proposal that the budget committee accepted. So you have to think, well, you know, if they're going to come back and maybe look at some pennies for the sheriff, for all of those entities that have needs, maybe they'd be able to look at us as well. So what I would like to see us do, if we make a decision on this and we're able to, from Doug's advice, to sustain a 1%, then we send them two budgets. One budget that meets what they asked, which would, with a 1%, and then another budget that shows them that there has been savings from the work done to take out about $500,000, and then we send them a B budget saying, in case that this comes, there's several commissioners, and I don't know how many, but a few that have said they just don't think it's sound business to completely not fund some of these positions, and as far as employees, and right, I don't know that there's anything there, but that's what I think we should consider, that we have A and B budget. If they don't pass the what is the thing called that they're Prop 5, which is zero taxes, zero property tax increase, and it not only hurts us, but it hurts all of those departments, other than they will be getting a 3% raise. So I think that would be something that I would like for us to consider. But I'm sorry, the floor is open if anyone has any discussion. Yes, please.
So a point of clarification is that we would send an option B budget as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
And was there a suggestion or a motion for what option B would be?
Nobody's made a motion.
Okay.
I would think that the option B should be exactly what we asked for the other night, less whatever savings you all found today, which you said is around $500,000. about $600. So I would think option B would be that number, which was, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but it's 106,400.
Oh, sorry, here, it's, 106,408,
Okay.
438.
Less $600 in the savings that we've done the work.
I'll give
So
you
that would make it,
106,408, 438 minus 600. It'd be 105,
okay,
808,
808.
438.
Okay, Mr. DePaul?
Sorry to speak so much. If we did do that, I've got two proposals up here. One is 105,362, 895, and one is 106 million flat almost. The 106 million flat makes a 3% raise effective September 1. The 105,362 makes a 3% raise effective December 15th payroll. So there is a decent cost difference through there because you would be doing 15 payrolls at the new rate rather than 22 payrolls at the new rate. So that's a 7 payroll difference, but
So the
that would put us around that 105 to 89 number is those two proposals, and they do factor in raises.
Well, I think I'd prefer to go with if we're gonna ask a Plan B for the 3%, starting in September.
September 1.
I mean, how do you all feel? Mr. Moore?
Yeah, I'm still confused where we're meeting the difference in what the county commission's telling us, the 103,524. Am I missing something here? Because we're talking about 2.5 million roughly above that. So where are we making up the difference on that? Is this all fund balance?
Well, that would be the option B budget if the commission does not approve proposal 5. If proposal 5 goes through, then option B is dead. If it doesn't go through and they go back to vote and elected officials bring their positions back and they plot their case for what they need, then we should have an option B for what the school board needs. And that's the reason for the option B, to ask for funding from property tax to try to make that happen. Now, if we're going to stick with the 103,524, 821, then the original option A, which is a 1% raise or a bonus that we could sustain, would be able to be done out of fund balance.
And just let me understand, though, that what you're saying, that we're gonna have growth in BEP, we're gonna have growth in property tax and those type of things, so that this will be somewhat returning to fund balance.
If we experience growth in those line items, some of them are offset by next year's step raises and next year's needs that are recurring. Something that's not recurring would be the Lenovo lease that we make our last payment this August. So that would fall off. That would be the final payment, and so we would have a little room to negotiate there. But there are recurring costs that are going to naturally increase. Vendors, utilities that we just kind of have to eat in our operating budget. So it would offset some of that, but we would hope that the growth would surpass that and be able to make this more sustainable. As a conservative estimate, I don't think it's, because it's not guaranteed. We can see growth and we can see it happen, and we've seen growth in our revenues, but like I said, the growth that we received this year did not pay for all of the things that we've been doing, and as we keep approving things and doing things, we're hoping that keeps up. If we give a raise higher than 1%, we would have to see not only the growth do what it's been doing, which is exceeding projections, but have to exceed the most recent year's revenue projections as far as an increase. So last year, the BEP increased 1.3 million compared to last year's revenue number at this same time. We would need it to really do 2.3 to be able to catch us up because of the cost of step raises and recurring costs that continue to scale upwards. Property taxes, we beat our sales tax estimate by about $300,000 this year for the whole year, because we were very aggressive on that revenue number, and, you know, I anticipate it to be higher next year, but we barely made it this year, you know. We were within 2% budgeting that number, you know, that's pretty aggressive, so.
Ms. Parker?
I'm sorry, Doug, I may have missed this, but did I see that you said we needed about 313,000 just to open up Battle Creek out of fund balance? I thought that the commission said that they were giving us enough money to cover it, so what happened with that gap?
So, we originally had a budget in the open Battle Creek Schools proposal of $104,568,000. And what they did is they took the cost of my department off of that number. And so that brought it down to the 103.5, and that's what they sent and said, this should open Battle Creek. They didn't look at our Battle Creek number and say, that's what we'll do.
Didn't they also tell us to take it out of fund balance to reach that 104? That's what I understood it.
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
They did. Oh, okay, that's what I understood, that we would use fund balance for the other 1.4. Not, and they weren't talking about Rays, they were just talking about Battle Creek. Anyone else? So,
Sorry.
yeah, go ahead, Ms.
No.
Parker.
Can you kind of go through, though, what the $600,000 in savings that y'all found? And the reason why I say that is because, again, I thought we were a lot closer to our number, so then when we have savings and we still need that additional funding, I'm just kind of curious what all we were able to cut.
We cut greater than $440,000 out of our bus drivers line. That was due to making the bus drivers' pay more competitive this year. An additional cut that we made that was about $50,000 was out of the contracted services in regular instruction, and those are softwares that we usually pay for out of those line items, and then also some services. There was one more that was $71,350. Chris, do you have that line item on your paper there?
Yeah, that was, we cut that out of the regular instructional program. That was the, I want to say 72,210. I think that was another contracted services as well. We dropped that one by 71.3.
We also cut coaching supplements down.
Yeah.
What was that by 100,000, Chris?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ms. Parker?
Can I ask then, when you cut coaching supplements, if those are teachers and they get step raises, and it's based off of a percentage of their salary, which has gone up, why would coaching supplements go down?
And I actually, it was 100,000 in the original proposal, but we ended up coming down to 842,000. We actually budgeted about here. Let me go ahead and go to the sheet. That way I can show it. So this is the line item. Last year it was budgeted at, hold on. $635,000. So this year we have gone up to $792 to compensate for that. We started with $942 as the original proposed budget and cut down from there. We actually have not fully expended all of the coaching stipends, but we have to put back July. So we're making those adjustments now in the finance department to put back our July 12-month employees that are on those contracts.
So are you saying that the number that you have budgeted will not create a deficit like the previous years? I mean, it's closer to what we are actually spending and what you would anticipate that we would spend. It's more accurate budgeting is what you're saying.
I would say it's more accurate, but I also think the original proposal had to deal with making things kind of level across the district, and in the original proposal, when we compared it to how much we had spent in coaching stipends, it seemed excessive. And I would defer to Dr. Marzak and Ron on why we cut those line items down from a strategic management point of view.
That's you.
Oh, gotcha. So in looking what we spent through June 30th in previous year, that we believe that it's going to come in right around what we're budgeting at 792,673. It would have been good to have a little bit of cushion in there, but I think we're going to be okay considering the numbers that Doug ran this morning with concerns to where we are currently year to date.
And that includes adding sports, like at Battle Creek Middle.
Yes.
And adding soccer at Mount Pleasant Middle School.
Yes. We should
All
be
those
okay.
are accurately budgeted in there.
We should be okay. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mr. Beaver.
Thank you, ma'am. I guess since we're looking for pennies, it's my understanding that we've lost one of our positions in central office, Dr. Killen, and I don't know what his salary was, but it would contribute to a pay raise or something along those lines if we don't fill that position at this time.
When he was brought in, his position was oversight for the school counselors and making sure that they're all on the same page. They're doing what's required as far as record keeping, as far as course management, course planning, and safe to say we ran into a couple issues after he came on the job with determining certain things at certain schools. So with him gone, there's then again no more oversight of the school counselors, and there's nobody from a central system support to help them with their curriculum planning, course matrices, and moving counselors forward with regards to scheduling. I would be hesitant to go back to some of the things that we discovered after he came on the job. I would be hesitant to do that. It could become problematic for some of our students.
Schedules have been made for this year, though, correct?
Schedules are still being made. We're still in process. Things are always in flux with scheduling.
Does he have direct contact with scheduling? I mean, he's
He
involved in it?
He worked with school counselors that were involved in scheduling, yes. Making sure the kids had graduation requirements, enough credits to graduate, the correct courses. Yeah, he worked with that.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Parker?
I was just going to say, when we when it was recommended that we eliminate the elementary supervisor position, then the lead principal position was created, and we paid basically a bonus or a stipend to a couple of principals to be the lead principal. Could we not do something like that with guidance counselors that would then, get essentially a bonus to organize PD and whatnot, as opposed to paying a $70,000-$80,000 administrator position?
There was still a position incurred because the lead principal got a dean of students that was able to help when they were out of the building still doing the work. So there was a small savings, but there wasn't a large savings because you still got an FTE in order to do that job. You still had help and assistance.
Well, if we just didn't give a dean of students, is that not something that could potentially save some money? I understand that you don't feel like that's the best thing. I do think that, if we're looking at savings and we're looking at cuts, I mean, if that position is, not currently being staffed, then I think that that's, something that we should really consider. I do know that there's been benefits to Dr. Killen with the PDs that he's organized, but I also think that we have a lot of really talented guidance counselors that could take that responsibility on, and I feel like, particularly on scheduling, at a lot of our schools, they know the scheduling process and the graduation requirements better than most. So I think that they could probably handle that, and they're probably a support group for each other anyway.
If the board wanted to go that route and cut that position, that's your call. I would not recommend it with the things that we discovered. I wouldn't recommend it.
What kind of things did you discover at that time?
We discovered errors in graduation requirements, errors in potential diplomas that we had to correct and fix at the last minute, scheduling mistakes of students in order to meet the graduation requirements as established by state law. We found numerous situations across the district where that had occurred, and we don't know how long they had occurred.
How much money are we talking about in that position with benefits? I don't have any idea. I mean, you're probably posted it so you would know what.
I would need to log into Skyward and pull that employee up. I can do that. Just give me a second and I'll pull this off of because it has information on the employee I don't want the whole world to see, so.
I don't either, and I would like some other direction here. Mr. Beaver?
No,
As to whether the consensus of that, as to whether that's needed. Mr. Moore?
I don't know about that specifically, but I'll tell you where I'm at. I don't want to pull money out of fund balance to balance this budget. So I don't know what that means or how we get there, but that's just personally where I'm at on this. After going over what we've talked about with Doug on this, about not only am I uncomfortable even with the, I don't know, I've gotten different numbers here, so that's where I'm still confused, 300 and something thousand to 400 something thousand of balancing it to the 103,524, and that's just meeting that. Then we start talking about numbers higher than that and trying to bank on possible money coming in that, to be honest, the BEP money that's coming in is not supposed to go towards one specific thing. I mean, I understand that, but when we start allocating that, that just makes me really nervous about what we're doing, trying to stretch this out, see maybe we can get through. It sounds like a family doing a budget. It's like, maybe we can just slide by till next Friday. That's what it sounds like, and it makes me uncomfortable. From trying to be fiscally responsible, that's what makes me uncomfortable doing that. And again, going back to our previous meetings with Doug and talking about fund balance and what would be a reasonable amount. I know that's what he's saying at this point, but from those other discussions, that's where we still were saying that taking anything out of fund balance just didn't seem like a wise choice, unless I completely misunderstood where we talked about that the other night. So that's where I'm still at, is that I don't feel like taking money out of fund balance is the appropriate choice to try to balance this.
I just cannot imagine that we don't have something for our teachers in this next budget when after they hadn't received anything in 2 years, and 1% is not that much, but it knows that they know we're fighting for it and trying to do it. I think Doug is as conservative a financial person. He absolutely is giving us the straight of it, and I don't think he would make that recommendation if he didn't think it was sustainable. I trust him in this, and I can tell you, I have begged for the last how many months? First meeting we had together, what do you want in this budget? What do you want? And I just cannot imagine that we don't think of our employees when we haven't in 2 years, really. And actually, the BEP that came out in June, and I don't have the figure. I'm sorry, I don't have it written down for some reason, but that June BEP said that 600 and something thousand is what was given for a 2.5% raise. A 2.5% raise is about $2.4 million. Okay. But I think that money should be what goes towards some kind of raise. And so, in essence, if that $600 and something thousand that was supposed to sustain a 2.5% raise from the state, which we know it doesn't and won't, if we don't give them anything, then we have just bankrolled that money again. And so, taking it out of fund balance, and I think that we have a much better situation in fund balance than we did a year ago, and we're going to have an even better one next year. And that's because there will be growth. And I think because Doug is very conservative and he's comfortable with that number, then I am willing to make this motion. All right.
The position benefits in all $91,284. And I do wanna answer Mr. Moore's question before a motion is made,
Sure.
and I hate to say this, I know I've got a lot of red shirts behind me, but I have to be honest, you know, it's not a personal feeling decision for me, you know, I have to take all that stuff out of it. So, I'm at the edge of my comfort level. I consistently find myself always being pushed to the edge of my comfort level in these meetings and at the county commission. Y'all wanna dig and scratch and claw to get every penny, and it's because you're passionate and you wanna serve the community the best way that you think you can. So, you know, I understand it, but Mr. Moore, I'm at the edge of my comfort level on that unless more revenue comes in. I stated pretty blatantly that I do not like taking one-time money out for a recurring expenditure. And, you know, that is where we find ourselves. Our growth will fund that gap, but will it let us do anything in addition next year at all? Anything different than what we're currently doing in our district? So, you know, that's a thought for you as a school board to encounter and you know, talk about. So, that's where I'm at. And that's how I feel numbers wise and about our fund balance. You know, we were really lucky. You know, I feel like audit's been given a hard time because they usually bring us bad news. But after they audited our financial statements, they found almost $1 million that should have been in fund balance that had been miscalculated. We would not even be able to do a 1% raise if they had not gone through and recalculated our fund balance. So, like I said, we're sitting at 5.4 million as the estimate, as our beginning balance for this next year. This budget would require us to have at least 3.2 million sitting in there. That's a $2.2 million gap. The cost of this would take $1 million out of there, and it's a recurring expenditure, which means we would be able to do it in 2021 if we had no growth. And that's the edge of my comfort zone, you know.
I'm glad
So.
you mentioned that $1 million, because that $1 million they found was money that could have gone to a raise last year for our teachers had we known it was there, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make this motion, okay? And y'all, that way we can test Shirley on voting here. I move that we send to the commission a budget of $104,626,446 that includes a 1% raise for all employees. I don't know, Doug, maybe.
If you're giving a 1% raise, like I told you, I was updating numbers to the last second.
All right.
So $104,718,034.
104,718,034.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now, if you want to take out the position, Killens, then you can certainly amend that figure. If not, that's my motion. Is there a second? No. Mm-hmm. There's no second.
Just a quick question, is that a number you gonna send back to the county commissioners with the 1% raise?
Number A.
Okay,
Yes. Mhm.
that's with the 1% raise?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Not out of our fund balance?
Yes, it would.
It would be out of our
It would
fund.
be $1,102,000 out of fund balance, which is basically what was the auditors found last year, really. But I hear no second, so. I'm ready for more discussion. We've got to send a budget back, so. Ms. Parker?
What's in that 313,000 for Battle Creek that's gonna be needed to come out of fund balance?
It's not assigned for a specific thing. That's just the deficit that we have comparing our revenues to our expenditures. That's just what our expenditures are over our revenues. So that's why we
So
have to
it's not
dig.
just allocated necessarily for Battle Creek. So if we start
No.
taking like 91,000 off of that, then it'll just lower that number.
You could say it's, yeah, it would lower that number. It would lower the amount we have to take out of fund balance.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a number on discretionary travel?
Travel by itself as a total, or just discretionary travel, meaning certain types of travel?
Total.
I think, yes, hang on one second, I do. Okay. Travel throughout the district costs $141,550. Budgeted for this upcoming year.
Mr. Moore?
I just had one more question, Doug. You can go back, just make sure I'm looking at the right thing, 'cause again, I got multiple numbers. What is the current number that just has us operating plus the opening the Battle Creek schools? I'm seeing different numbers here. and it's
The
kinda throwing
expense
me off.
number,
Yes.
like I said, I was updating things within an hour of this meeting, so that's $103,981,050.
Thank you.
That's with 500,000 factored in for attrition.
Mr. Howe?
And just real quick, on that travel number, that includes all travel, including mileage reimbursements and everything, correct? So when teachers travel just from different areas, that includes that as well?
If coded correctly, yes.
Correct, okay, thank you.
Well, lock the doors. We're gonna stay here till we get a budget. Come on.
Sorry.
Oh, was your light on?
Yes,
I
sorry.
couldn't see it.
What
Go.
about memberships? And if you guys have already cut these things, let me know, 'cause I don't wanna cut things further. But I'm just thinking things that seem discretionary to me.
We have budgeted $18,810 for next year's dues and memberships. 18,810.
And how much could we save if we reduced our pay as board members and went back to the previous?
How much do you wanna reduce it? Oh, go back to the previous? Were you paid per meeting?
We were paid per meeting.
How much?
Like 40 and 80, or when I first got on the board, it was 25 and 50.
Okay. I'll go with 40 and 80, and give me a second.
Okay, it is a policy we have that, right, I mean,
I'm getting 17,204. and that's an estimate because you never know how many meetings you're gonna have under the other method, so. It would be, it's an estimated savings of 17,200, and that would be, I mean, just over 1,000 per board member.
Any other discussion? Are you all?
Doug, the permanent sub position that we added this year, have we already funded that for this? Is that included in this budget, and could there be some savings there if we didn't do that?
I don't remember us cutting that this morning, Dr. Marzak.
No, that position comes out of current substitute funding. So if we don't fund the one position for school, we need to keep the funding level at what it was, not reduce because we won't have enough money to make it to the end of the year by current estimates.
I've never been this quiet for this long. Honestly, we can find a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there, but it's not gonna amount to anything, and I still say that our employees need to have some kind of compensation.
Ms. Cantor, I was just gonna say, I don't necessarily disagree with you on that, but I think Mr. Lukonen said if we did it, we'd need to look at it being a bonus. And I know that in the past, there's been some opposition to that phrasing, 'cause obviously it's a one-time thing. But I will just say, with the current state of where we are, I can't support a recurring expense coming out. I would be a lot more comfortable with a bonus than I would be with a recurring expense in the form of a raise.
Mr. Beaver?
Okay, all right. One thing, let's try this. I'd like to make a motion that, we do away with Dr. Killen's job, position this year, and maybe look at it next year.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, Ms. Parker second the motion. Any discussion, Mr. Howell? Okay. Mr. Moore?
Okay, I'll do this because I do it every year. I think making motions on these things, while I think they're good discussion points, is not the appropriate way to handle the budget discussion. I appreciate, Mr. Beaver, you bring it up. I've already put that in my calculations of trying to make the numbers work, and I definitely think that, for me, is something that would be on the table for the discussions. However, taking it, I don't know if it's really the best way to do this, to start making motions on cutting line items. I'd rather us kind of talk about how to get to somewhere, and if we can make it happen, that's just where I would be. So I would be voting no on taking just that motion, I guess it would be the appropriate way to do it. Although I do appreciate that, and it's still in my getting to the number stack, so.
Any other discussion? Okay, now excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr.
How long did the school system function without that position? Was that someone you hired when you come in, or is that?
Yes, that was a position hired after I arrived, and when pretty much every guidance counselor in every single school said, help us. We have nobody to advocate for us. We have nobody that's telling us what's changing. We're all by ourselves. So they felt like islands unto themselves. Their principals were slammed with all the responsibilities they had at their school anyway, and having to keep up with changes at the state level with regards to guidance counseling was extremely difficult. So that position was created as a need from basically every counselor in the district.
Then we're ready for the question. Do you want to try electronic voting here? Huh? Ms. Parker? Which means we gotta get back to the agenda. Where's the agenda? No, that's not it. Return to your meeting. Oh. Huh?
It even tells you who needs a roll call vote.
Are we voting?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Yes or no?
all right.
And look, it automatically shows up red or green. Cool.
All these have already voted?
Not yet. You haven't voted yet. Yours is still rotating. So once you
Okay,
vote,
well, I may sit here a while then.
once you vote, then they'll stop rotating.
Huh? Everybody else has voted but me. I'm just
No,
looking at this picture.
No, Natasha hasn't voted. Nathan hasn't voted. Because they're, see the way they're rotating? That means they're still,
Ms.
there's still a
Parker hasn't
deliberation.
voted.
No. One more name.
Huh? Wait a minute. No.
There you go. You killed it. Four, five, ma'am. There's only 5 people that can vote. Will, you wanna do a voice vote? Or are you good?
I will. I'll vote yay on that.
Okay.
No, one's a yay, one's a nay.
Nathan's a nay, and Will's a yay. There you go. Did you click? Click yes. I don't have any. Oh, he did. Oh, click.
I see 5 nays. And 3. How many people are here? It's only 10. So that motion does not pass. I'm sorry. To those of you sitting here trying to figure this out, this is our first time to do this. Mr. Howe?
Okay, so, as I agree with Ms. Parker, we can't sustain this with just simply giving, I wanna give a raise, I wanna give more than 1%, but I can't just do it out of savings. I can't just, and expect it to be sustained. I know Mr. Laconin's numbers are solid, I feel like they're a great estimate. Will we get the BEP and it be more next year? Probably. Am I gonna bet the farm on that? No. I mean, I can't, we will probably have growth. How much? Who knows? Maybe it'll pay for this and maybe pay for more, I don't know. So with that being said, I can't vote to sustain, to continue a 1% growth or 1% raise that we will have to somehow figure out how we're gonna make that up next year and put some money in the bank to keep aside. My biggest thing is just taking it out of fund balance. I don't like to do that. Why would you ever take money out of your savings account to fund something that you know you're gonna have to fund year over year over year? I mean, would you use your credit card to pay your electric bill every year or every month? No. I mean, you know, unless you're trying to get points and pay it off, we're not getting any points here. So, I would like to propose that we send to the county commission a 104-718-034, which would fund a 1% bonus for this year. And I do not like doing that. I do not like doing that at all. They deserve a raise, not a bonus. But that's what I'm proposing. One time.
One time, okay.
Yeah, that's
In hopes that we could sustain it once we see how the year goes.
17.
So give me that total again, that motion, please.
It's 104-718-034.
7.
Instead of a raise, it'd be a bonus.
I see. Okay,
Yeah.
same thing as before, but instead of a raise, it'd be a 1% bonus.
It'd be $1 million out of fund balance.
No, it's for
It's for
everybody.
everybody.
Okay, I second that motion. Any discussion, Mr. Sims?
Doug, can we get a number for how much per employee that would be if we did that? It would be, so it would be 1% of their salary instead of we taking the lump sum and dividing it by however many employees.
Yep.
It would be 1% of, okay.
How much is the 1%, Doug?
$736,000. That's how much 1% costs. If we divvied that up, across the 1,609 employees. I wanna get the exact.
His motion is that 1% be calculated, and that each one, based on their salary, 1% calculated, that would be their bonus.
Okay, so they would get a bonus, rather than, okay.
Am I correct?
Is that correct?
The
Will?
exact same numbers as would have been the 1% raise, however, it's
But
only
no
for 1 year.
guarantee for next year.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
It would be $458 an employee,
Roughly,
roughly.
which is,
If it was divided by 1,600, not 1%. Which is not what we're doing.
no, that's not what we're doing. No. That's not what we're doing.
What's the total amount for that?
736,000.
Yeah.
Same as it was if we gave a 1%. I'll, the,
I thought we were doing it your way, but it's 1%. I'm with you.
calculated up on their salary.
So, clarification, just give it as a bonus rather than a raise.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Other discussion, Mr. Moore?
So essentially, we're just throwing another higher number back to the county commission at this point. This is not to... We would fund it out of fund balance.
The thing that concerned Doug, is my understanding, was the sustainability of it. Next year, we'll, seeing how it years, and then we can look at it and see. We wouldn't have, it wouldn't be something we would automatically have to sustain unless the funds were available, correct? That's why you prefer a one-time bonus.
Correct. I prefer a one-time bonus because it gives you flexibility next year, see where your growth comes in, and be able to fund something a little more concrete if, you know, revenues exceed projections and BEP comes in stronger. It gives you an opportunity. If we do the raise now, you know, we're tied in for that raise for next year and step raises, and that'll eat up a good chunk of the growth that we see after step raises are factored in, because we'll be running permanently at a deficit, and so the growth will help first pay the deficit off to get us up to zero, and then there's step raises which cost just over $700,000 a year, and so you're climbing out of that hole. So we would basically start, if we gave a 1% raise, we would have $1,050,000 deficit that we're operating at, that we're gonna take out of fund balance this year to make happen. So then we get into next year, and we have to add to that deficit $700,000. So you're starting, before you see any of your growth, at a $1.7 million deficit. You hope that your growth overcomes that, and you get into the green, or, you know, into the black. But that is unforeseen. You know, you have to see an increase greater than what we saw this year to overcome that.
Well, we did have to, one of the problems we've had is we've had to fund Battle Creek. Those new positions won't be the BEP will not reimburse us for that till next year. But we did get money from the state, almost $700,000 to fund a 2.5% raise, which we know it won't do. So you're saying $736,000 will fund a 1% one-time bonus position.
Correct.
And so, in essence, it's really what the state intended us to use that money for.
You can say that.
I can say that.
You can say whatever you want.
Mr. Moore?
Okay. So I just make sure I'm on the same page as everybody else. We're accepting the numbers from the county commission and the overage, which is 1,193,213. We are choosing, per this motion, to pull from fund balance. And I will go back to where I was previously. I'm just not comfortable pulling money from fund balance for this.
Mr. Howe?
And truthfully, neither am I. But I feel like we have to do something. I feel like we need to. Do I want to pull money from fund balance? No. But I don't see an alternative.
Financially beneficial.
Okay. All right, I see no lights, then we're ready to vote. Yeah.
Yeah. It's down at the
It's
bottom.
down
of that
here.
amendment, too. Yeah, it's the bottom.
Mm.
Yes.
Not looking good. Ms. Parker hadn't voted. Ms. Hopkins hadn't voted. Mm-hmm. Okay. That motion does fail. Are the doors locked? Why don't we take a break? About 10 minutes. I'm gonna ask the, but I think we need to come back in session. Are you okay with that? Or you wanna make the motion? Okay. Mr. Howell has a motion. Listen up. Ms. Parker? I've written so many numbers down, I'm gonna have to. Okay. Let's get a new piece of paper here. Mr. Howell?
Okay, so, Doug, if we take 104, 661, 65, we do a 1% raise effective December 15th, and we remove Dr. Killen's position, we would only remove from fund balance about 668 from fund balance.
That's correct. I'll go ahead and put it up on the screen for everybody.
Please, yeah. So my motion would be to take the number of 104, 441.65, which gives the teachers a 1% raise effective December the 15th, and we remove Dr. Killen's position out at $92,000.
Is that the correct number?
We'll see. No, it's 104, 441.65. 441,665. What'd you have?
Can y'all give me some room on the projector?
Maybe it is. What is it again? Okay, hold on. Let me get my numbers from him.
So that would bring the total to 104,349,665 with a deficit of 681,844. The raise was factored to cost 460,615 due to its effective date moving to December 15th payroll. So that's 9 payrolls without the raise and 15 with it. And then removing a position from the line item 72130, other student support, at the cost of 92,000.
That's correct, yeah. So 104,349,665.
I'll second the motion. Discussion? Oh my gosh. We're ready for the vote.
Clarification. Is this a raise or is this a bonus?
Bonus. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. It's a raise, it's a raise. Yay. Okay, that motion does fail. Ms. Parker?
I think we need to go back to the number that the county commission sent us and figure out how to get there. I'll tell you, I'm about 110,000 from, with my calculations, cutting some stuff. I don't know if we wanna go through this budget by budget, line item by line item, or what the best way is to try to, if we wanna try to get down to that number. But then, if we can get to that number, then I would like to see us go back to the county commission at that number, but ask for them to give a 1% raise. So ask them to give us more, but show that we've made the good faith effort to cut down to that amount.
Talking about Plan B or Plan A, you're asking us to go back and ask again. We're done asking, I'm sorry. But I can tell you from the other night, watch the video. That we're done asking, unless they're willing to give us more pennies. Do you agree, Doug?
I can't speak for
No, of course not.
22 people.
Of course not.
I don't know what they're thinking right now. They could change, I don't know.
No, I was told, we were told in no uncertain terms that, in fact, Don Morrow called today that they want a finished budget by tomorrow so they can take it up with the commission tomorrow night. We still have a debate. I'm sure there'll be some commissioners that don't agree with the Prop 5 or Prop whatever it's called, but I don't see anything other than it's 3 meetings they've had and told us that. And I've been at all of them.
Well, I think we may be up against a little bit of a dilemma, because from talking to the teachers, the bonus idea does not,
I don't like it either.
does not benefit them as far as their TCRS is what I was
Right.
told. So I don't know that that's a viable solution, but if we take money out of fund balance for recurring expense, that goes against everything I've ever been taught on this board. And that's the struggle that I'm dealing with. Because I do think that there needs to be a raise, but I don't know how we get there without some people without essentially going through a budget, each department's budget,
I
and
think
making some significant cuts.
other boards use fund balance to balance theirs routinely. And I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. And years ago, used to be in the years that I would attend these board meetings almost regularly, when they did the budget time, they would always say, okay, this is how much we'll take out of fund balance this year. The fact that we've had to add 21 teachers, that we don't have any money to replace that until the next budget, to me is enough to say that it is appropriate to use fund balance for those things, to replace that cost. So understand, because all the 3 years I've been on the board, we've always said, oh, that's our savings account, that's our savings account. But yet we did fund RTI positions, we did fund other things that were recurring as well. And, I mean, you wanted to spend $1 million on athletics, certainly, understand, but I'm saying that was out of fund balance, it would be funds that were gone, and it was a one-time thing. Well, hiring 21 teachers when you don't have BEP money to back it up is kind of a one-time thing, because next year we will receive money for those teachers. We'll receive exactly a portion of it. But we're now gotten it down to $668,000 from fund balance. I'm not sure, I'm not looking at the BEP right now, but at the very top of it, it tells exactly what was sent for that 2.5 supposed raise, and it was right at about that figure. So the fact that we're asking to take out of fund balance exactly what the state allocated to us seems like that's just a no-brainer to me, that it wouldn't be right not to do that. And I think that even Doug, as we were looking at the numbers a minute ago, felt like this might be a little bit more sustainable, a 1% starting in December. I don't know. I just don't. I know we're in a peculiar situation. I think we also know that we need to do some things, next year before budget time so that we don't get us in this position. We need to put ourselves in a better position. We need to look at all kinds of ways, maybe even looking at the step raises and equalizing them so that there's not so many different varieties of step increases. Those are things that maybe the work needs to be done after this. But just to say we don't use fund balances for emergencies, needs, special needs. I think this is a special need. I really do. I think I was thinking the other day about the things I might use my savings account for, and it might be for one time to make sure things are better or something for my. I use it all the time, tell you the truth, but yeah, excuse me, Mr. Howe.
Well, I think that getting into going line item by line item, we're going to probably back ourselves into a corner to where it actually may backfire on us and we end up costing ourselves more in the long run. And by that I mean travel, for instance. We may just slash that down to the bottom and then end up having to figure out how to fund simple things, but for teachers taking to a conference or something like that, because we've slashed it all out. So if we're just going to go with a slash approach and just start hacking away, I'm afraid it's not going to. I'm afraid January we're going to be saying, oh well, now we've got to take X amount out of fund balance to put this back in because we're right back in the same situation. And I mean, I am by no means a financial expert. We have one of those, and he's met with these people. He's met with every department head, and they've made cuts where they can. I know he doesn't know what the hell goes on in those departments, but I mean, these people work for Maury County Public Schools, and I have to at some point trust that they know what they need to operate on. I do have a degree in business administration and a minor in economics. I don't know how to run a school. That's not what I was elected to do, is to run a school or a department. So I think we've squeezed as much as we can squeeze out. I don't know, but I've made two propositions here, and I'm not getting any traction. So I'd like to see some other ideas, some other proposals.
No, there's no motion. We defeated it. Oh, wake up. Mr. Moore.
Okay. Mr. Howell, I mean, I would agree with you. I guess the difference I would have is that I see pulling money from fund balance as setting us up for failure moving forward. And I'll be honest, I've found myself over the last few years in that position, in this seat, doing similar things. And I'm, at this point, just not willing to do it again. And I understand if other people are in different places on that, just not me. Just to be blunt, I'll go back to last year when we had a very ugly discussion about cutting positions at the last minute, which is not what I wanted. But I think the reality of that discussion is we should have, over the last year, right-sized or cut some positions and made that happen. And I don't think we'd be having this discussion right now. And that's where I'm personally frustrated, because I'm sitting here knowing that that's what should have happened, knowing that's what needs to happen, but I know it doesn't need to happen a week out from school starting. So I'm in a tough spot here, but again, at some point I've got to hold my personal line and say that I can't keep continuing this. I can't keep pushing it down the road, and I feel like that pulling money from fund balance for this is just pushing it down the road again, and I'm just not willing to do it this time.
I'm not usually lost for words, but I don't know where to go here, unless some of you have found a change of heart, or if you have another number, if you have other issues or whatever. But I personally don't think it. I don't personally want to go through every line item and find a nickel here, a nickel there. I want to. I think that Mr. Racona, do you think that what the last motion that failed is sustainable?
For this year and next year, but like I had stated before, yes, it's sustainable, meaning we would be able to fund that raise, but looking at it from maybe a Dr. Marzak point of view, are you able to educate children at the level this school board and the community needs to be? You know, just because, and are you able to have the supplies that you need? You know, with the cuts that were made, you know, that's something to think about, because we'll need to, just to give this raise, we'll need to climb out of a hole, you know, to get flat even, which means, okay, well, we had these increases and we're back to even. We can't do anything for anything, you know, next year. So I see Mr. Moore's point, and I am also not a fan of taking one-time money for recurring expenditures. I've stated that, and you know, we do. I think it should be I do think that the school board should have financial goals, and I do think that they should hit these benchmarks and set financial goals, because I don't think that it's ever been managed in that manner, and that, you know, you having goals such as that, you know, maybe not needing a tax anticipation note, maybe coming up with a strategic financial plan that, you know, we don't even have to have this discussion. Whatever our revenue grew, that's what we put towards raises, you know, because we've got everything else funded. And so it's not that easy right now, because we're in a pickle, and we've gotten into this pickle over time. And it also kind of shows a very hard lesson when people don't trust what you're putting out there due to audits. You know, I hate to continuously bring that elephant back out into this room, but it makes people think, even if things aren't, you know, necessarily bad, on the surface, it's hard to trust. And then you think, well, there must be more to cut, because, you know, I can't trust this. So, and I'm kind of getting off the rails here, but it does seem like a combination of funding on our revenue side and a combination of being fiscally responsible as a school board on the other side, and setting those goals, you know, so that when it comes time to ask, not every time do we want to do one little thing, do we have to ask the commission for a property tax increase. I think it would be good to set that as a goal going forward, you know, but that's down the road. You know, that's a hindsight 2020, and then looking and hoping forward and developing that strategic plan and how we would get there. But at this point in time, the answers are pretty simple. They're pretty laid out. You know, it's just, you know, who's going to jump on which side first. You know, we've got contradicting opinions on the school board. So, you know, I guess I've rambled long enough.
Mr. Moore?
Okay, I think he's exactly right. It's pretty simple. I see one or two things are going to happen, because so far the votes have shown that there's just not a taste for pulling from fund balance. That's what I'm seeing in the votes tonight. So that means that either we are going to need to cut to the 103,524,821 number that the county commission sent us, or we need to ask for more money. One or the other. And this board probably needs to discuss that, because if we're going to do the cuts, there's one of two ways to get there. It's either for the board to do it or for staff to do that. I don't know of any other solution other than one of those, I guess, three courses. So as a board, we need to figure out which one we want to do. I would have liked to have seen staff had brought a number that would have met the 103.5 number that was given us by the county commission, but that's water under the bridge at this point. So again, we either do that tonight as a board and we start going line by line, or we task staff with doing that and bring it to us, and we have another meeting before the county commission has a meeting. I don't know how that looks, but we need to do one of them.
It's tomorrow at 4:30.
I guess we're taking vacation days and meeting at 9 a.m. I don't know. But we're going to have to come up with something.
Yes. Mr. Beaver?
Thank you, ma'am. If we took 1/4% cut across the board, when I say across the board, all major categories in our budget, what would that be?
It would save 260,000. That's 1/4%?
Yes,
Yeah. 260,000. It would get us within $53,000 of at least balancing with opening, Battle Creek. So, but that would not include a raise or a bonus.
You still got the floor.
thank you, sir.
I was wondering if he was gonna continue to go
I
up
know.
percentages until.
All right.
Mr. Beaver,
Okay, talking about going up percentage, let's try that and see what, if we go up, let's say 1% across the board. Well, is that just,
That would save, greater than $1 million. 1,039,810. That would do it, but where do you actually look into your budget and see, well, where do I take my 1% out of? You know, do I take it out of staff or supplies, or do I just hit everything with that and see how the year goes? I guess, what's your rationale?
well, I was thinking if we could just take 1%, if we got, say, 10 categories, and do it that way, just hit it across the board.
I would ask the administration, that's a management decision.
Yeah, there are some things we can't cut, like internet and workman's comp. And we know, like, that's a certain amount. We can't cut 1% out of those things. So what we'd have to do, we can't cut 1% out of somebody's salary. They can't make less than they made the year before, or the year subsequent, sorry. So we'd have to get intricate. And some would take more than a 1% cut than others. Some would.
So you're telling me that there is not 1% fluff in this $104 million?
Well, we cut out this morning 600,000. Yeah, we cut 600,000 this morning without impacting the classroom at any. Because you're also talking about, that's a hit to the textbook line, that's a hit to to lines that directly impact the classroom. So that would be a hit there as well. And one of the things we talked about, Dr. Woodard and I talked about this morning is, you know, we haven't had a healthy textbook line in years. We've usually budgeted around $200,000-300,000. We have $800,000 in there now. And, you know, with us budgeting healthy last year for mathematics, we think that's one of the reasons why we made such great gains this year with concerns to math in our district. So we have intentions for that money for curricular resources that would directly impact the classroom, be available for kids. It's difficult to say right here at this time without having a negative impact on the district. That would be difficult to say. That I cannot guarantee it would not make a negative impact. And like Ms. Kinzer said, probably coming back 3, 4, 5, 6 months from now and saying, hey, we got to take this money out of fund balance because this increased, or we got to take so much out of fund balance to meet this line so it doesn't go under by June 30th, kind of like what we did 2 years ago. You know.
So I guess we need to break out the pedals.
I'd like to hear from all the board members. Natasha, do you want to speak, or any of you all?
Sure.
Well,
I would like to know, and not saying previous administration was good or bad, but how many additional positions as far as within central office, supervisory roles, things like that, have we increased by?
So if my memory serves me correctly, and other people that have been on the board for a while, the positions we've added are the supervisor of counseling and mental health. We've added the district athletic director position. We brought down the elementary supervisor position. I believe also, at one time we also had a middle school supervisor position. Now we've combined that to be just secondary. So one person is doing both middle school and high school. Trying to remember if there's anything else. That's Mr. Breeden. Can you think of anything else? Yeah. So yeah, I think that would be a push.
What about the data position? It was a part-time position when you were hired, and I think
Yes.
now it's full-time.
Thank you, Ms. Parker. You're right. Yeah, that was a part-time position, and we hired a full-time person. So we're looking at a .5.
And have
net.
we had anybody in that position?
We
for
have
the
a
last half?
couple that we have encouraged to apply who have not applied yet. We don't have anybody as of yet that has fulfilled the qualifications for the job. But that is a position that we will need. That person is in charge with embargoed information, following up to make sure the ACT is correct. As we know, the state messed it up, and due to Dr. Preninger's work, we're able to move off of in need of improvement because the state messed up on ACT. So we still are actively recruiting for that position. It's very difficult to find somebody with that quantitative mindset, but we still have that position open.
was your light on, Ms. Hopkins? Anybody? Okay, Ms. Hopkins.
I was just gonna say, like, being new to the experience, I understand that we can't, like, go back. Like, I can't say, I need everybody to go back and give me 6 o'clock when we start it back. We need to start back. You can't go backwards doing things, and like Mr. Laconin said, it's ideal for us to start making the financial goals, and once we are able to start that's a new thing. He's a new, person that's helping us to make sure things stay outlined and stay away from audits and that kind of thing. But when I first started, we had that time, we just did our thing, just getting to meet each other. I had asked myself, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Why do I want to be involved in this? And budgeting and all of that is important, and it's what makes things run. But it's also about the children, and the way the children are when they come in here from the different schools to give us a pledge, and they run around, they give us all those nice gifts, and they do all that. They're able to do that because they have awesome teachers, and so we want them to continue to do well. Well, what helps them to strive and do well is when their teachers feel honored and celebrated and appreciated, and their financial life is increasing so that they want to come and want to teach. So I don't know the numbers and which way to exactly get there, but they're deserving. When we want our county to be better, we want our county to excel, we want our county to stand out, then we have to push that, and we have to be a voice to help teachers be celebrated and be appreciated. And money talks. And they need to know through in a tangible way that we're behind what we say and what we do to the best of our abilities. Yes, the county commission is, we know that's what it has to go through and what it takes, but what we're going to do together makes the difference. So we want our village to be great. I said the Mahalo village, when they enter in, they never ask the adults anything. They always ask them, how are the children? Their thing is that if the children are doing great, the adults must be taken care of, and they must be fine. So we want our children to be great, so we got to figure out how to get there.
Well said. I do like what you said, Doug, about strategic plan about our finances, one of the things I also had talked to this board about more than once is having a strategic plan about the future for our teachers. Where do we see them in 5 years, in 10 years? Where that would be a pretty easy thing to say, that we're gonna make sure that a 2%, and that would be able to be budgeted to be part of that financial picture as well. So I think there is a lot of work we need to do, going forward to have a better, and it would be more helpful for us to know that we are working toward that goal, and for them as well, that they don't have to put the time in and they know that we are appreciate what they do, and then looking, you know, to monetarily reward them for it. I just can't imagine a budget without something for our employees. I'm sorry.
Doug, can you kind of lay out for me what happens if we don't agree on a budget tonight?
They can continue forward with the revenue number that they have, or they can not continue with it and continue to wait, and then if nothing is sent back, then it would revert back towards maintenance of effort. So.
And our budget would be what it was for FY19, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
And which would be 101?
100,952,535.
Thank you, sir.
Doug, I don't know if this is even possible, but is it possible to propose a budget contingent upon an increase for teachers next year?
No. Sorry to say no, because I know that it was definitely a decent option. What you would do is wait for next year's budget process and do it then, because the reason we do a budget process every year is to obligate money for the upcoming year. So that's why if we have a multi-year agreement, it needs to come before this board and the county commission and get approved, because we're allocating that we're going to spend funds beyond a year, and getting that approved would require an allocation of funds for more than 1 year. You could simply, I guess, put that in your motion, but it wouldn't be
Not something
in,
they can act on.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and the reason why I say that is because I feel like every year we get into how much is the raise going to be, we never know what they're looking at. They don't know what we're looking at. We're all operating in the dark, and I feel like if we could somehow or another, I don't know, through financial management board, through your leadership, through something, get on a plan where, you know, I know the county's getting a 3% raise for some of their employees, or for their employees this year. If we say, well, let's give our people a 3% raise and alternate years to do the 3% raise, then at that point, you have an idea what to budget for us that following year, and they have an idea of how much revenue we're going to need that following year.
Kind of like a raise strategy for the community. Okay. I mean, I think that that would have to be a joint effort between the school board and the county commission. I will say the positions are vastly different. You know, county compared to school. I will say that the benefits programs and everything, we're not comparing apples to apples when we're comparing the two employee bodies. You know, the workforce. So it's kind of hard to say, well, you know, we'll make the raises the same, because the plan, the grading structure and the step structure, and also the benefit value in comparison, there's a lot of differences, and just the type of work and the average salary is vastly different. So it's kind of hard to put one plan on a huge variation of employee base and salary base and grading structure and benefit structure. But if that is a route that the school board wants to go, I would probably meet with the county commission on that and get an MOU or a contractor or something drawn up and approved and put through resolution.
Mr. Atkinson?
I just have a question about a line item. 310-299, what does that pertain to? Yeah, 72,310, 299.
That's, post-employment benefits. That's the health insurance that we cover, through the age of 65 for our employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had a quick question. Doug, what was what was the number again on the not giving the supervisors, I guess the principals, vice principals, those, what was that number again?
A raise would cost $736,984 for each percent if we gave it to everybody. If we pulled those people out, it would cost us $671,311. It is a savings of about 65,000 some odd dollars per percent.
Kind of going off what Ms. Parker was talking about, I'm with the ones who don't want to take out a fund balance, but I'm also with the ones who want to give our teachers a percentage and not a flat rate or a bonus. Would it be possible to give, say, 1.5% on the last payroll of this fiscal year?
Yeah?
So you would essentially be no. Wha-
The
Well-
total amount,
No, it would
Oh,
just
okay.
be for they.
that one pay.
I know it sounds, sounds like we're shorting our teachers, which we basically are, but if we elect not to give a raise at all, that would guarantee them a 1.5% for one paycheck for this fiscal year, and then going forward, or whatever percentage, if it were 1%, or I was saying 1.5 just because we would be shorting them throughout the rest of this year too.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and I'll calculate what that cost would be.
Okay, just to be clear, then, you would,
Their raise would just go into effect on the last payroll, so going forward,
going forward, they would have that for the next year, correct?
That would
But-
cost, $46,062.
Yes, and then going forward for 2020, they would realize that yes, it would guarantee it for next year.
That's what, well, I would rather see it be higher, the 2% or 2.5. I mean, seriously, yeah, what would be sustainable? Yeah. But we would know at that point what our growth is, so we could make it more than that going forward, if we could. You know, in 2020.
We actually spoke with Mary Ann today, and in January, we would get our growth money as well, and we'd really see where we're at. They did decrease that fund, because across the state, enrollment is down a little bit, but in Middle Tennessee, it's growth throughout Middle Tennessee. It's East and West Tennessee that's seeing slight decreases. So they decreased the total fund. They also said to us that if Williamson County grows more than us, then they capture that growth money, more than we do. Just depends on the growth, but I can factor any percent in here. Just know that, that would be an impact on next year's budget more than this year's budget by far. So we're just delaying the cost. It would be a similar, and the reward. So it would just be a delay to see how things play out, to see how we really grow, and see if we'd be able to withstand coming out of the hole.
Another quick question on one of the line items, 72, 110, 188.
That's the coaches' supplements that we have decreased. The original budget was 942. It's down to 792. 792,000 now.
Okay, all right, I'm just making sure, 'cause it don't show last year's in there. So we didn't have anything last year, or was that a different line item this time?
It was in a different line item. It was actually
okay.
being paid through regular instruction, but since that's under Carl's supervision, we moved that. And original, last year's proposed was actually 635, so. Did anyone second Will's motion? Okay.
I'm willing to hear a motion.
Where would that put us with needing or not needing to pull out of fund balance? What would our final number be if we did that?
We would have to pull $359,291 out of fund balance.
But aren't we could give a 1% one-time or thing for 600, it's $300,000 more. And out of fund balance, because that's the figure I had.
We would pull over $1 million out of fund balance
Okay.
if we gave a
All right.
1% raise. $1,050,213. That's a 1% raise would pull out of fund balance.
I was just saying, I still don't like this, 'cause I mean, if we have a teacher that's gonna be retiring next year, basically that teacher's not getting a raise again for another year. So, I mean, that's why I'm just contemplating. I wish if anybody else has any comments on what I said, I'm not sure.
Ms. Hopkins.
Are any of the nays gonna change to yes?
Make a motion and we'll see. I'll make a motion. I move that, the budget be $104,349,665, that includes a 1% one-time raise. Bonus, excuse me, bonus.
$349,665.
665.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Mr. Howell, second the motion. Any discussion? Mr. Atkinson?
What does that put us over our number?
$668,000.
Okay.
Which would come out of fund balance, which is, once again, what money went in there from the raise they got. But you've heard me say it. Yes, Doug.
Does this have to, are we leaving the position in? 'Cause it was not spoken.
No, that figure was out. I should have that in the motion, shouldn't I?
Well, because we made that motion and the position was in, and so that was the number, 104,441,665. But if we put that position back in, that number changes.
I thought the total without that position was $104,349,665.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, that's correct. So I had in this one, I had the position in there.
Right, well,
So-
that's
so this
without
motion-
that position. yes.
Okay, okay. So this is the motion that went through and, okay.
Okay. Okay, then we're ready to vote. Oh, excuse me, I didn't, Ms. Parker?
So, with the 1%, is that the 668, or that includes the difference in the Battle Creek too?
That includes the difference for the total, so we would be taking 668 out of our fund balance.
Okay.
Okay.
I see no lights and we're ready to vote. That motion fails. Again. Mr. Howe?
I mean, I think we just need to possibly adjourn if we're not gonna come up with any other ideas or proposals. I mean, if no one's gonna make a,
Just be clear, if we adjourn and we tell the commission that we could not
I
come up with a
understand,
budget,
but evidently we're not coming up with
Then they could come back to
anything.
us and go back to last year's budget. Or they could go back to the 102.6 that they,
That's,
you know,
that
we
must be
could
where we're
literally
at.
probably not be able to vote, to open Battle Creek. So I don't think that's doing the work that we need to do. I understand what you're saying, but
I mean, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again. We're split down the line here, so we're not coming.
You would have to make a motion to adjourn and see if I second.
I was just making a statement.
who's? Ms. Parker. It's official. split down the middle. Mr. Moore, how about you make a motion?
Are you sure?
Go ahead and make it. I know what you're gonna do, but I was thinking about making it myself.
I don't know if you want me to put this in a motion or not, but I think at this point that, again, either we as a board need to start cutting to get to the 103.5 number, or staff needs to do it, one or the other. I don't know if that needs to be a motion, or if we just need to sit down and do it, or if we need to adjourn and let staff do it, and then we ratify that before the county commission meeting tomorrow. I don't care how we do it, but one of those needs to happen.
How much would have to be cut to get to the 103.5? I've got so many figures written down here, I don't remember.
Depends on if you wanted to put in a bonus or a raise.
Right. That would be nothing, right. Depending on, Mr. LeCompte, go ahead now.
The staff wanna take a few minutes, take a look at it again? Take a quick break, let them look at it and see if they can come back with another number?
What? Let's take a break.
You don't,
Can we reconvene here in just a few minutes? David, will you be just a few more minutes? I'm gonna reconvene the meeting, I, I get no respect. But I got one. Mr. Atkinson.
Well, I would like to, gonna make a motion. And I wanna go ahead and apologize to the teachers already. My motion's gonna be to accept the county commissioner's budget, because we're sitting here spinning our wheels, along with the Battle Creek, pulling out a fund balance of $313,000 for Battle Creek. The way I see it right now, we're sitting up here spinning our wheels, ain't getting nothing accomplished. And if it goes back to county commissioners without a vote on this, we could end up eventually cutting jobs out, because they'll kick it back down to last year's budget at 101 million from last year, and we're gonna end up losing positions. So that is gonna be my motion.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? I'll second the motion. What is the total amount? 103,983. Okay. Taking the money for Battle Creek out of fund balance, only $313. Is that the correct number?
It is $103,981,050. It would take $313,229 out of fund balance.
Ms. Parker?
Mr. Lucanen, what's the amount for the data position that we don't currently have in place?
The data position, is that Mr. Carver's position or a different one?
Prenninger?
Is he working tech or no?
It was a sheet.
Okay. Do you know where it comes from, Chris?
What department?
Or I guess a better question would just be, any outstanding positions that are posted right now for central office, if we eliminated those positions and did not hire those positions because they're not currently staffed, how much in savings would that be?
I'd have to look at the whole list.
Right.
Let me pull it up. Give me a second.
Okay.
How many positions are there, two?
Are you talking only central office staff, or does that include coordinators, supervisors? How far do you want to go? I mean, only open positions? Okay. you would have to go farther than those open positions. I also factored in, the counselor supervisor position as well into that. It got us to 185,000, including benefits. The other positions in leadership are occupied at this time.
So that's just those two positions,
That also included the data analyst, the KOS coordinator, and then the counselor supervisor position.
okay.
Those three positions. And the benefits, Social Security, TCRS.
Doug, what are you talking about KOS coordinator?
It was in the sheet Amanda sent us today. It's
They've
only,
hired, that position was hired today.
and the thing is that's a reimbursable position, so it would only be a savings of $10,000. The rest of the position is funded through federal grant.
The Kids on Stage Foundation.
Kids
I'm
on
not pleasant.
Stage.
Yeah.
Okay, Kids on Stage. Yeah. So that would only be a $10,000 plus ancillary benefits and taxes savings, anyways. I didn't know that it was. It says open in my sheet, so it says that nobody's hired, but that's typical. Never mind.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor unless someone wants to amend the motion.
I'll amend it to reduce it by that amount, so.
By 180, okay, by 185,000.
I'll make a motion to reduce it by, hold on, let me get a number. All right, I'm gonna make a motion to amend that to reduce that number by $296,010. And where I'm coming up with that is the 185,000, or I guess I should, sorry, make that $286,010, because we can't do the Kids on Stage. So it's 175 for the data position, the counselor.
I thought it was 185.
He said 10,000 for Kids on Stage.
Okay, right, of course, excuse me.
So I just made it 175. Does that make sense, Doug, if I reduce that 185 number to 175 since we took out the Kids on Stage number?
Yeah, that would be fine. You could actually reduce it a little bit more if you wanted, because you would get taxes and benefits on that 10,000. So we could actually take 12,000 off of your number, the 185, to bring it to 173, because we used a 20% factor on benefits due to medical insurance averaging around 8,000, and then other percentages for Social Security, Medicare, TCRS.
Okay. So 173,000 for data counselor position being reduced. I'm gonna go with $70,000 for travel reduction, which is less than half of what that budget was. And then 18,810 for board fees, which would mean changing ours back to the 40/80 instead of what we would be taking a reduction. And 17,200 for memberships, for a total of $279,010 reduction of the number Nathan had presented.
That would include, then we would not be members of TSBA?
I don't know what else included in the memberships.
Is that what you're saying? Is that what that is, membership?
I can look at what it was spent on this year and pull it up for you. I'll just need a second. And can you, is that in the form of a motion? 'Cause I'm about to
It's-
drop it in,
No,
I'm
it's
sorry.
it's an amendment to the motion.
Okay, I'm gonna, can you roll through those again so I can amend the proposal I have?
I can't vote for
173 for the data and counselor position, 70,000 for travel, 18,810 for board fees, 17,200 for membership.
Thank you.
It's an amendment to the motion that was made by Mr. Atkinson.
So we don't need to be TSBA members, we don't need to do that.
Yeah, we need to be, yes, we do. I mean, but hers would mean we would not pay those memberships. We wouldn't have enough money to do it. Hmm? You know, really and truly, some of these things, they'll be coming back to us to come out of fund balance eventually. I don't see, I mean, I don't know exactly how much was spent in travel last year. I mean, is
That
that?
was gonna be my question, how do we know what is needed for travel and what's
Right.
not needed, like?
Right. And
Ms. Hopkins, that's the recommendation that you have before you with the budget documents that the district is recommending through my office. This is what we're recommending to the board that we need in order to sustain the district and continue to move towards the strategic plan of 2023 of being in the top 10% of the districts in the state of Tennessee. So that's the budget that you have before you is developed with the strategic plan in line, that you guys voted on.
And what was your recommendation? I think you said something about that, about the data position, you recommended against it because it needs to be filled later on, or?
Yeah, it does need to be filled. For example, one of the things that I was telling Mr. Sims offline, or when we were in the break, is we were actually, due to our ACT data, we were about to be labeled a district in need of improvement. That means it doesn't matter what the test scores did. We could have made double-digit growth. We still would have been in need of improvement. Anita went in, found out where the state had made a mistake deep with the ACT data, appealed that, and they took off the in need of improvement tag for this year. So Anita is, or that position is one of those positions that, through state data, keeps us out of trouble because the state makes mistakes. And so if we don't have anybody to dig in to work with the state to find those mistakes, then we could be penalized, and it's not even our fault.
Thank you.
Right, just to clarify though, there are still people that we currently employ that could potentially find those issues. Anita's not here to find those issues this year. We don't even have that position filled. I'm not saying that it wouldn't be a benefit to have that position if we had the money. We don't have the revenue for it right now. That's the problem. This isn't firing somebody that already has an existing position within our school system. This is just not hiring a position. That's all we're doing here. Now, if revenue bounces back and we're able to, we're already saying we can't potentially provide a raise to our teachers. This is a position that's gone unfilled for over half a year, I believe.
is there a second to that amendment? I don't know.
Total, Doug, for the motion.
The total for the motion would be $103,702,040. To answer your question, we did pay TSBA membership and conference costs out of that 320 line item. The annual meeting was $1,500 and the membership was $8,287. So that's all.
What were the last three numbers, Doug, on the line? 103,702.
103,702,040.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, seeing no second, second the motion. Okay. I heard you, second the motion. Any discussion? Mr. Atkinson?
My only issue is, we having our do what? Our pay, just change the policy now, or does it need to make a motion to change the policy now, or? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, yeah, I mean, alright.
Say, if we're not able to provide our teachers a raise, I don't think that I think we should take a cut. I mean, I think that's just us showing that we have skin in the game. None of these cuts are ideal, but I don't want to, those of us that have been on this board for multiple years have taken money out of fund balance, and it's just never come back the way that we thought it was going to. I wish it were different. I just want to show some solidarity with the teachers that, I mean, we've got skin in the game too when it comes to that. We can't figure out a way to balance our budget ahead of time so that we can figure out a way to get them a raise, and I do think we should take a reduction.
Any other discussion? Okay, we're gonna vote on the amendment. Let's be sure what we know what we're voting on here. What was the total of the amendment? Was $186,001? Is it written here? The total budget, but the amendment is to his motion. We haven't voted on the motion. This is a motion to amend. Yeah, this was a motion to amend. So we have to vote on the amendment. Then we'd know what the total was for the motion. Any other discussion?
Does anybody remember what the original motion was?
The original motion was $103,981.50.
Okay. Okay, so Shirley, motion to approve the county commission general purpose budget line, take amend out.
We're gonna vote the amendment first. Oh, I see what you, yep.
And then change the number to, say that again, please, ma'am?
$103,981.50.
981050. Okay, and then we're gonna amend that motion. To, Doug, say that number one more time.
$103,702,040.
Okay. Let me check something before she hits.
I have just a quick question while
Yeah.
they're discussing that.
Uh-huh.
What does, I mean, I understand we don't have to be members of TSBA. What is that going to entail if we decide not to?
I think we've
re-up
already
our
paid our
membership?
dues, hadn't we? Yeah. We're hosting the fall meeting in September.
Maybe we find that money in another line item to
Yeah,
use.
from
I
fund
mean,
balance.
I'm just saying, if we do decide, say, we're just gonna let go of TSBA and run our own show, is that doable? Is that okay? I don't.
Williamson County wasn't a member or still isn't a member. Williamson County hasn't been a member. I'm just,
Okay.
the fact is,
Yeah.
not every district.
Okay.
They're the only one. Everyone else is.
I didn't know that. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Howe?
We use their systems
Yeah,
to do our
this is-
voting and stuff, so does that go away?
Yeah.
We did purchase that? Okay.
We haven't bought it yet. We haven't paid the dues yet.
I'll just say, if you want to add back in TSBA membership, I'm amenable to that as far as the second goes. I think that was 8,200, but
But, did you take, was that taken out, 8,200? I thought you had 1,700 for memberships, you didn't say TSBA.
for membership, I said 17,200,
Oh,
but I think that
17,000.
includes
Ugh, okay.
TSBA as a part of it, correct? Mhm.
I would feel more comfortable if we could remain in TSBA.
I would too, and honestly, I didn't know that that was included
Okay.
in there, but, David, are you amenable to adding that 8,200 back in and we'll keep TSBA?
Do,
I'm okay with that as a second.
Okay,
So will we
Hear
reduce
that?
that 280
let's put the 8,200 for TSBA back in.
Add 8,200 back into whatever that number is.
Okay, Nathan. Excuse
yeah.
me, Mr. Atkins.
That's okay. Well, really, the only thing we need to send for the board, for the county commissioner, is the, whatever budget they sent us, 103, I done forgot my numbers. 103, and all this other is coming out of our fund balance, so we don't, technically, we don't have to talk about it tonight. It's just, we just need this, we,
We would need to present a budget document.
Yeah, they would have to have a document with where everything would go and whatever.
but that's coming out of our fund balance, so
Nothing,
that part right there would be coming
You-
out of our fund balance. The only thing they need is whether we accept that balance or not.
We're still at a 140? That was more.
But that's coming out of our fund balance,
137 is still not there. We gotta get to
right?
135.
I mean, all this extra we're talking about is coming out of our fund balance. Even though we're just taking off the 331,000, we're just taking away from it. So really, all the
13.
county commission needs to know is whether we're gonna accept their budget or not. And the rest is on us because it's coming out of our fund balance, not theirs.
that's right. Mr. Howe?
Doug, but don't we need to send a full budget to the state whether or not we pull from fund balance or not?
That's correct.
Yeah, so we still have to hash it out and figure out what we're gonna do, so.
If we send I was talking to Mary Ann today. The other day I told y'all if we didn't recover, that, next year the state would send back our budget for violating the 3% test. And I verified that today. That's correct. They would send our budget back if next year things didn't recover and we didn't have enough fund balance to cover it, so. I just forgot to mention that earlier.
I want to be clear what the total is in the amendment, so we'll know correctly. Ms. Parker? Okay, we can vote on the amendment now. Okay, Ms. Parker? Ms. Hopkins? No. Mr. Moore? No. Mr. Atkinson? We're voting on the amendment right now. Okay. Mr. Sims? Yes. Ms. Kinzer votes no. Mr. Beaver? No. Mr. Howell? No. No. All right, we're ready then for the main motion, which is 103,981.50.
I would like to make another amendment.
All right.
I would like to add a 1.5% increase on the last payroll of the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Also, I guess within this amendment, take out the counselor supervisor and also the data, Dr. Perringer's position. So I guess there's three things within that
Okay.
amendment.
So we would be adding the cost of that that last payroll, 1.5%, June the 30th, but we'd be decreasing the amount, by the figure for the two central office, positions, 173,000, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, give me a second. There's so many proposals. I've probably got 20 proposals this year. Okay, so, including the raise on the 1.5% raise on the last pay period of the year, that costs $46,062. That brings that up to $104,027,111. But then you would drop it down by $173,000, removing those two positions. So the total number would be $103,854,112. So $103,854,112.
I second the motion. I mean, to amend. I mean, that's the amendment. All right. Any discussion? Then we'll vote on the amendment.
We would like to add one more thing to this. Go ahead, Shifra.
Just the way too close. Just the way the school policy is, bus drivers get finished paying they get their last paycheck in May. 12-month employees get their last paycheck in June. 10-month employees, who are all teachers, will get their last check in July. I just wanted to put that out there for, if y'all get questions like, I have not received my raise and somebody else has, well, it all depends on what contract they're hired under, so just FYI.
So you're saying that really the last amount would actually not come in until the last of July for teachers and...
It depends on the category of person. If it's a bus driver, like I said, bus drivers are on a...
Maybe you need to add
And food service is
paid.
totally another
Last
group
paid
of
day.
people. They're on 22 pays. We have people on 20 pays, 22 pays, 24 pays, and I think there's one I'm still missing. And they're just, yeah, which I think they're 22 as well, but.
I don't know how it would need to look, but the reason, no, I understand. The reason I was just saying the last pay period, just so all employees
that's in
would
that
be
fiscal year.
guaranteed starting the next fiscal year, they would be guaranteed a 1.5 from where they were now.
This would be a deficit of $186,291.
From fund balance. Okay. All right. We're going to vote on the amended motion. Seeing no lights, then we're ready to vote. Yes. Oh, Ms. Parker? Ms. Hopkins? Yes. Mr. Moore? No. Mr. Atkinson? Yes. Mr. Sims? Yes. Ms. Kinzer votes yes. No. Mr. Howell? Yes. How many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That does not pass. We need 6. Okay. Then we're back to the main motion. That's $103,981,050, correct? All right. None of the things we just took out.
It's what we cut down to this
It'll
morning.
take care of Battle
Chris.
Creek.
Yeah.
It'll open Battle Creek, and it'll meet the funds that the commission told us. All right, then we're ready to vote. I'm gonna start. Oh, we can, okay. Wait just a minute, hold on just a minute.
Are we still gonna have to pull out a fund balance with this?
Yeah. 313.
We're pulling 313,000 out.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mr. Chairwoman, may I add a point of clarity, I guess?
Yes, please.
I will say that there is $110,000 currently that we're going to pay next year for our Lenovo agreement that will drop off, so that is a one-time expense. That would not have to be funded in the following year, and I think the board already knows that those two positions that were taken out in the previous motion are included in this $103,981,050 request.
So if we considered those two positions and the fact that Lenovo is a one-time position, that total would be 283,000, 283,000, making it only about 30,000 would be taken out of fund balance.
We can't take the 110 off because we have to make the
But
payment.
you're saying,
But it will be, we'll pay it this month, actually, or August.
It will be,
August 26th, it's 110,263.
is it 263?
I'm pretty sure, yeah. I feel strong about
I
that.
need to look at the due date.
that's pretty close. Okay, Mr. Atkinson? Light.
Sorry. Next year you won't have to pay it, right? Yeah. Alright, okay.
Mr. Dr. Marzak.
Yes. Stan's got the sheet too. He's looking it up. Yeah. 500 or 250, something like. Yeah, so
And what's included?
500 student devices.
500 student laptops? Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Now we'll entertain another motion. Yeah, we will. let me get this straight. If we were to cut out 18,000, which is the amount it's budgeted for school board members, I'm with Ms. Parker, I don't see that we cannot give the teachers something that, and we, you know, even at, I mean, we were already been given a 2.5% raise. I wasn't gonna let them give me that for sure, but, all elected officials got a 2.5% raise from the state. 18,173, that's 191,000. If that was a recurring expense that we might make you feel more comfortable with the fact that we're using fund balance for that, that would mean that total would be up to 301,000, really. So I don't know how that equates, but you're pretty close. So I don't know whether the, and then the other thing is, if we just simply vote to do what the commission said they would give us and tell staff that, to make recommendations to meet that. Which may or may not be some of the things we have said, but definitely needs to be considered. I don't like that look.
You shouldn't like it. You know what, I'm gonna put that out there as, simply so we can discuss it.
Okay.
So the motion would be that we, task staff with meeting the 103,524,821 number that the county commission has
So it was
set.
810.
Ma'am?
821.
Yeah, it's the, whatever,
I've got some new figures on it.
103,524,821, that's the original number from the county commission. And that would be a motion.
Is there a second to that motion? Ms. Parker, second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Atkinson?
Is that including the Battle Creek, meeting the Battle Creek number too?
No. No, it does not.
That's what I'm asking him, the one that made the motion.
No.
Okay.
There was the 313,000 extra was for Battle Creek. One time.
No, what I'm saying is, my motion is that staff to fund meet the budget and fund the Battle Creek positions is to meet that number, as the county commission has requested that we do. And for staff to find those cuts, that's what my motion is. So yes, the Battle Creek positions will be in that. There will be nothing coming out of fund balance under my motion.
Okay. And it's been seconded by Ms. Parker. Any discussion? Mr. Atkinson? No. Okay. Mr. Moore?
So the heartburn I personally have with my own motion on this is, you know, I'm a little disappointed that I understand that staff feels like they need to take their position on this, but I think it is clear at this point that this board does not have a taste for pulling from fund balance at this point. So I would expect staff to put together some numbers and meet the one that's being requested by the county commission. I don't like it. I've got a little heartburn with trying to say just go find those cuts and then bring it back to us without us having any way to really approve that or oversee that or actually turn that into the county commission. But at this point, I'm not sure what else to do.
Mr. Atkinson?
Well, it looks like we've pretty much been talking about it all night. We getting real close to that number, dropping those two positions, dropping our pay down. I mean, how far we're away right now? We're, within $30,000 of meeting that goal, ain't we? For
Well, yeah, we're about 130 from meeting that goal, but.
Oh, about 130? Okay.
But we also, he made us aware of that there was an expense that's non-recurring. We said we'd use
and
fund
that
balance for
expenses too.
non-recurring.
Yeah.
So, but we'd still have to use, to apply that as a fund balance expense.
They kinda know where we stand at now, so.
But according to his motion, though, the 110, I mean, that's not in the motion. Nothing from fund balance. Mr. Howe?
So when they come back with a recommendation of personnel cuts, everyone here is happy with that? Because there's not much else to cut. We've cut, last year this board cut lots of programming. I feel that this budget's pretty lean. Could it be leaner? Yeah. Could we take some time and maybe look at those cuts in August or so? I would probably make a much better decision instead of a knee-jerk reaction that we have to do this by this date. Unfortunately, it didn't get done last year. We didn't look at right sizing last year. It just didn't happen. It's got to happen. Now, can we do that smart? Or can we do that within a week of school happening? Probably not a real good idea to make a knee-jerk reaction that soon. But that's what's going to happen. With this budget number right here, that's what's going to happen. So when that happens, are we ready for that? It's unfortunate, but that's where we're at.
Mr. Moore?
Mr. Howell, to answer your question, am I happy about it? No. Am I ready to deal with it? I guess so. I don't like it. I don't like where we're at, but it's where we are. So it's unfortunate, but sometimes, again, sitting in the seat, we have to make difficult decisions.
I was just gonna say, I don't like it either. I feel like I've tried to make some recommendations tonight on ways that we could cut it without potentially having to cut a bunch of teachers. Now, if staff chooses to do something else, that's certainly within their discretion to do under this under this proposal. But quite frankly, I think the time for that to have been done by staff was months ago when we were having budget meetings, and that didn't happen then. And I feel like what ends up happening every year is that we rally a bunch of teachers to come in red shirts and come to county commission meetings and say we're going to give them a raise, and then we don't. When instead of budgeting from the very beginning and making sure that we cut the fat, cut the fluff, as Mr. Beaver says. But that doesn't ever happen. We got to have our travel budget. We got to have it. We've got to have this membership. We've got to have that. I'm not saying those things are not valuable, but I just would prefer that we do what's in the best interest of teachers and students, particularly students, quite frankly. Because I'm a little upset that we've cut things that are going to impact students from the $600,000 that you mentioned earlier. But I don't know what else to do. I do not have an intricate knowledge of this budget. I don't. I expect staff to. I expect staff to make recommendations. They have not, for the most part, made the recommendations to get us down to this number. So I don't know what else we can do. Because I don't want to leave $2 million, $3 million on the table so we can't open up Battle Creek and then have to tell those teachers and those students that we can't open up those schools. We really just don't have a lot of choices, and we get into this position every single year, and I'm tired of it.
Mr. Laconin?
What is the proposed timeline to have this back, cuts back?
Do we have to give a line item to the commission tomorrow?
I mean, we didn't kick it back, we just sent our, we got the recommendation to keep the same thing, so unless it's gonna be a higher recommendation than that,
Then it'd be the
I think
same.
it's just gonna stay at what
So
they've
you'd have
given.
some time. And we know we've
Well,
identified...
if they approve it tomorrow night, I'm sending it to the state. If they approve the school's budget,
Unless it's a Plan B.
well, they could turn down proposal 5, amend it to proposal 6 tomorrow night,
Using the same one we did.
and approve that budget as well.
Okay.
So
That's going back to...
there's a lot of things that could happen tomorrow night. They could amend their proposal at the meeting and pass it.
That's what, several hours ago, that's what I was talking about, that anything could happen as far as, since there's some commissioners that feel that the services need to be, maybe we will be involved in some pennies there as well, but that's why we were discussing a Plan B. We hadn't even gotten that past Plan A yet, so we've identified some areas for cuts. I think his motion is asking staff to make those decisions.
Well, and we would, the thing is the cuts could still be made. We would just cut it and make sure we stay within the confines of our budget.
I think that,
They could approve just how it is, what they've sent to us, and we would just cut it on the back end and say, okay, we're not gonna spend this money.
mhm.
And my purchasing department would say no to anything that sends the budget over,
Okay,
so.
is that okay? Okay. Any other discussion? Then we're ready to vote. Mr. Moore made the motion, Mr. Parker seconded the motion, and let's see the motion. Wait a minute, motion to approve the general purchase budget amount of $104, huh? Oh, scroll down, I'm sorry. I just wanna make sure. This isn't an amendment, this is a motion. This is not an amendment. And it should be for the general purpose budget. It should be, 524,821. No, nothing. Unless the commission decides tomorrow night to, add on to it. The budget committee will accept it, but then it goes to the full commission, and then they are the ones who set the tax rate. Some of them indicated that they could not. No. They might assign pennies to other departments, it could be ours as well. To give us more than a request? No, to go back to our original request. That's Plan B. But that would not be what we'd be presenting as a budget? No, to the budget committee, we're gonna, if your motion passes, we'd be presenting Plan A. How do we present more of a budget? I'm not sure how that. I don't know, this was Doug's idea. I don't think that's functionally possible. This is where this came from. Discuss Plan B. We have Ms. Parker.
Go for it. We're in the middle of a motion?
I think his question was.
I'm ruining that.
No.
Sorry.
I think what we wanted you to explain to him again is Plan B.
Oh, so.
Yeah, let's vote on the motion.
Okay.
It's not correct. It's down at the bottom. It's not what it's saying on the screen. Ms. Parker? Ms. Hopkins? Ms. Hopkins? Roll call vote. No? Yes? Okay, no. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Atkinson?
Yes.
Mr. Sims? Ms. Kinzer? Yes. Mr. Beaver?
Yes.
Mr. Howell?
No.
All right, now explain Plan B.
Plan B is, if the commission does not go with Proposal 5, the sheriff's department and the court clerk department and all the departments that were getting new positions, and to the tune of about 19 total positions, would come back to the table if Proposal 6 was accepted. Proposal 6 increases taxes to pay for that surplus and fund what they think the community needs, from the recommendation of those department heads. So, also, I think that the school board should have a hand in that if taxes are going to be increased this year, to request what they think they need. So, I was just talking to Chris today, and he said, well, it would be a good idea to have two options, and then it just carried here from there.
Okay, so I guess my question was, how do we functionally present two competing budgets out of this committee? I don't understand how that works.
If proposal 5 is taken.
Oh, no, sorry, let me back up. I understand how they could consider whatever they want to consider.
Oh.
I'm saying as a board, I'm not sure how that really legally works. Let me put it that way, how we can propose two separate budgets. That doesn't make sense to me from a legal standpoint. And Jake isn't in that seat right now, so I can't ask him.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that's not something we're able to do.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But it was just a thought that if they did not go with proposal 5, we would have a backup budget that was ready to go. And we could do that at the budget committee level, if they were there, and they could amend to go to proposal 6 and take but if we pass, you'd have to almost pass two budgets here. You know what I mean? And that would contradict it. Yeah. It was a good theory. But
So really, this means that we really are out of the ball game if they were able to give more pennies. Unless they just knew we needed it.
My opinion would be on that, if there were sufficient county, and we're speculating at this point,
Yeah.
if there were county commissioners that were willing to reject the proposal that's in front of them at that, go back and reconsider, it would be, I guess, they could reject our current budget, send it back to us, and we could send them a higher number back, which seems crazy, but it's what they would need to do.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.